Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's dive into a story about how OP skillfully dealt with a neighbor who thought laundry rules and shared spaces didn't apply to him. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. When the dryer strikes at midnight, so do I. I live on the first floor of a 3-story apartment complex where my unit is right next to the shared laundry room. We're technically not allowed to use the machines between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m., but sometimes people do their laundry as late as midnight. I have no problems with it as I work late and can't hear the machines when my linen closet and bedroom closet doors are closed. Recently, one of the dryers has been making a horrendous screeching noise when it's running. It's so loud that I could hear it everywhere in my apartment. The nearby units possibly hear it too. I had the manager schedule a technician to come by, look into it, and leave a sign on the machine saying to only use it between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. out of consideration of the neighbors. My neighbors have been great about it, and some even made a point to run the dryer when I'm not home. There's a guy on the 3rd floor that seems to only do laundry once a month. He accumulates so much clothes to wash that he uses all the washers and dryers on each floor, but takes forever to remove his clothes from the dryer. He's been confronted/reported a few times for this, and I thought he'd stopped until the other night. It was almost midnight when I got home from work. I was walking to my unit when I see the guy getting into the elevator. That's when I hear the distressing wails of the dryer echoing down the hall. I went to the laundry room and saw that the dryer was started 3 minutes ago with a big sign saying the hours of operation still posted. I wasn't in the mood to deal with the shrilling noise digging into my brain and ears for the next 57 minutes, so I opened the door to stop the machine, then closed it so the timer will continue, but the machine won't run. I got to sleep in peace and quiet that night. Before I went to work today, I checked the dryer. The timer had reached 0 and the clothes were still inside, damp with a bit of smell to it. I closed the door and left for work. I got to the entrance of my apartment building when I see the guy exit the elevator. I said nothing to him as I watched him walk towards the laundry room while carrying a basket. Enjoy spending another $4 washing and drying your clothes. The fact that he didn't even come get his stuff till the next day makes him the biggest jerk, and he deserves the revenge. It's really tacky to use all the washers and dryers in a shared place and then also be slow to move your clothes. And our second story. First shift's last laugh? Not if I have the final say. From 2008 to 2016, I used to work for a local manufacturing company. Primarily did farm equipment and defense contracts. There was a lot of malicious compliance from the employees because this place was a 300-employee company that was family-owned, so relation was given priority over skill or experience. This meant a lot of stupid orders and direction was given to people that have been in this profession longer than some of these folks had been alive. My personal favorite happened to me sometime in 2012. I was a second shift lead in the robotic welding department. My responsibility was to do whatever first shift left for us on a hot list and to ensure first was set up to run in the morning, as they had more employees than I did. This meant I spent most of my night programming and setting up jobs because they expected me to watch a 8-man crew with my head stuck under a table in a 15 by 15 foot robot cell. First shift was notorious for keeping knowledge a secret. A lot of their guys were kept as button pushers. Load the part, push a button. If something went wrong, they called one of 3 people to come fix it. On second, I was this person as well, so I trained my crew to be less reliant on me. This meant my 8-man crew was out producing First's 12-man crew. We're a team. I got my list done, and First was able to run without issue right away in the morning. That day, First Shift had programmed some new parts for me. They had set up the job and gave my guy and me the green light to run. Our golden rule in robots is always check your parts. You can make junk in a hurry. My guy fires up the job, and lo and behold, the part is out of spec. Dimensions are off, welds are too small. My guy goes to fix the program when first shift lead steps in and says, "I programmed that myself, it's fine. I'm tired of you guys wasting time playing with these robots all night." My guy was a bit gobsmacked and questioned the dimensions and welds. Lead gets in his face and tells him to stop being so picky and run the parts. They have to ship tomorrow. Pause. This first shift guy has been playing this let's screw second shift over game since I got put in charge. I was actually supposed to have his job, but this guy must do some great brown-nosing because he somehow got to keep it. He's very much a work hard, not smart kind of guy. He sits at his desk and Googles random crap all day, so much so they took his desk away, but didn't discipline him. I told my guys when he's here, we play by his rules, but once he leaves, as long as outwork is done, I'll take the heat if he has issues with us. Needless to say, a few meetings were had where I had to defend my guys, won every one of those discussions, so first shift guy was getting salty. Unpause. First shift lead leaves, and my guy comes up to me and says, OP, these are all messed up, and first shift lead says run them. I go look at the situation. He has set us up good. The job was so big that my guys would just be able to finish it if they ran at rate for all 10 hours. It had also taken an hour to step through the program to fix the welding issues, not to mention the time needed to shim up the fixture to correct the issues. Doing either of these would mean we played around on the robots all night and didn't run production parts. Wouldn't ship. Doing either of these would mean we played around on the robots all night and didn't run production. Parts wouldn't ship, and my guys would be to blame. So I called up the first shift guy and told him I misplaced the hot list he left me and if he could email it to me. I get an email restating the hot list, but because it was an email and this guy wanted to stick it to us, I knew he'd put a stab in there about these hot parts. Sure enough, in writing, XXX parts on Robot 1 are set up. First piece was done and signed off. All you need to do is run them. So it's what we did. I knew they wouldn't ship, and I knew that all 300 of them would have to be cut apart and fixed. Our customer would be pissed, and they'd need someone to blame. The look on his face when he drugged me into the front office for not following the golden rule, and I just handed him the email over, told the plant super I was told they were good to run. I won many battles with him. He won the war eventually, kinda. I wanted his job, something fierce. I was promised it, but I had to take a week off for an emergency medical situation. When I returned, I was promoted to quality. Come to find out, I apparently had a long talk with first shift lead while I was out and told him I didn't want to be in robots anymore. Joke's on him, though. I had to sign off on all his parts. There were many nights that I may or may not have had time to do that. I've since left. He's still there, finally was demoted. I hear he's still an absolute useless piece of garbage. But he's the best brown-noser I've ever seen. And that promotion to quality? Classic. They thought they'd sidelined you, but instead you ended up in a position to play gatekeeper to his work. Talk about karma. The image of him sweating over your signature, knowing you could just run out of time to approve his parts, is deeply satisfying. And our last story. Bulldozing Boundaries, a neighbor's mistake that cost him big. I own a half-acre property in a small town of about 700 people. It's quiet, and I've enjoyed the peace and the natural surroundings until recently. While I was out of town, my neighbor decided to have a path cleared around his pond, a seemingly harmless project except for one glaring issue. The section of shoreline he cleared wasn't his. It was mine. The property is clearly marked with survey stakes, so it's hard to imagine he didn't know where the boundary was. He cut down trees and brush along the shoreline and tore up the soil, which is wet and marshy in that area. From what I can tell, he cleared it to make it easier to drive his truck to the back of his property. The kicker, he damaged my property for his convenience without even asking for permission. When I got back and saw the destruction, I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he genuinely didn't realize the property line, so I went to talk to him, keeping it polite but direct. The conversation quickly turned into a circus of excuses. At first, he claimed he'd hired someone to do the work, but later in the same conversation, he shifted gears and said that the person who did it wasn't hired at all, but just cleared the land out of the goodness of their heart, for free, without being asked. Right. I suggested we walk down to the area in question to look at the damage and check the property lines together. He flat out refused. He wouldn't even come outside to see the obvious mess he'd caused. Instead, he stood on his porch, puffed up his chest, and asked, "What's your goal here?" I kept my cool. I told him good fences make good neighbors, but the area's too wet for a fence, so I'd sleep better at night knowing we're both clear on where our property lines are. He didn't budge. I know exactly where the lines are, he insisted, and anyway, I didn't do the work, so it's not my problem. Not his problem? The trees were cut down, the soil that's now a rutted mess, the boundary he ignored, all that screams his problem to me. But he was dismissive, and it became clear that he didn't care to make things right. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that he knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't some innocent mistake. He wanted better access to the back of his property, and instead of asking, he just bulldozed ahead. Literally. After that conversation, I decided enough was enough. I filed a report with the local sheriff and documented everything, photos of the damage, the location of the survey markers, and even notes from our conversation. I also reached out to an attorney to discuss next steps. Turns out I could sue him for trespassing and property damage. While I considered legal action, I also decided to get a little creative. I planted a dense row of fast-growing trees, thorny ones, along the property line he cleared. They'll serve as a natural barrier. As for the damaged area, the court didn't let him off easy. They ruled that my neighbor was responsible for replanting all the trees he'd cut down and restoring the shoreline to its original state. He was also ordered to pay for the damages caused by the heavy equipment that tore through my land. It's going to cost him a pretty penny, and he's required to hire professionals to ensure the job is done right. The sheriff's office made it clear that his actions weren't just a mistake, but a blatant violation of property rights. With the court ruling against him, my neighbor has been noticeably quieter these days. I've seen landscaping crews start to arrive to repair the damage. Watching the slow process of him undoing his mess has been deeply satisfying. The court ruling couldn't have been more satisfying. Forcing your neighbor to not only pay for the damage, but also hire professionals to fix everything is a well-deserved lesson. Honestly, this guy underestimated the wrong neighbor. He's hoping the thorny barrier serves as a constant reminder to him to think twice before he decides someone else's property is fair game. Well done. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.